Or City Skylines 2. Basically continuing where I left off yesterday. Trying to build up the city, so let's see what we can do.
Yet, how does that benefit us?
Timcast.
It's just hegemonic power for those who are in control. What is beneficial to us today and tomorrow? That is strong foreign policy, well-funded international military apparatus that is under the control of the American people and not starting massive wars, peace agreements instead of the conflicts. That's Donald Trump. Donald Trump was the guy who went to Europe and said, NATO, pay your bills. The American people will not
pay your bills.
The bill. You are straining the global economy. You are straining the petrodollar. Pay from your GDP or else. And they go, well, fine, I guess. But they're not paying their bills. Why? Immediate satisfaction for these people. Short-term gain, long-term losses. Donald Trump says, secure the border. The American people should be safe. And their jobs should be sound. And we should bring manufacturing back. Better economic base makes it better life for the American people in the long term. Abraham Accords. Economic stability in the Middle East. Peace between Israel and Arabic Muslim nations. To start. Not perfect. No, that's not what the Democrats want. For some reason, ISIS flourished under Barack Obama. Under Donald Trump, evaporated. Peace in North Korea. All of these things that Donald Trump is working on seem to be plans for a prosperous tomorrow. The things the Democrats are working on seem to be plans for a more prosperous, I guess, immediate day for them personally. Seriously. When the money gets spent on war in Ukraine, the contracts go to these large military-industrial complex corporations, and then these people in Congress bet on the stock and make money off of it. They're extracting from the system as they burn it to the ground. Yeah. That's why the media lies. Because they're funded by this stuff. Because they have sponsors. Because they're brought to you by large pharmaceutical company, you know. Axios says, Jews the borders are. It's right there. It's plain as day. They're the ones who started this. Not Republicans. Republicans just said, look at the news. New York Times says, why Republicans keep calling Kamala Harris the border czar. This leading phrase is meant to underscore one of the thorniest issues in her portfolio, immigration. As Democrats tangle over the re-election prospects of President Biden, Republicans at the National Convention this week have trained some of their most intense criticism on Vice President Harris. They have tied her to an administration that they say has led to increases in crime and inflation. They have cast her as an enabler of an aging and ineffective president. They have blamed her for record levels of migrant crossings at the border. Well, we'll pause there. It's not that she made them happen.
That doesn't exceed city limits. Why is it saying that?
And if you want the problems to get solved, she is not. But perhaps no phrase has been deployed more than this one. Border czar. Kamala Harris isn't able to do this job. She was appointed border czar at Gates. Appointing Kamala Harris to oversee the border is like appointing Bernie Madoff to oversee a retirement plan. But Ms. Harris was not, in fact, appointed border czar, nor was she tasked with addressing the broader problems plaguing the border itself, where minors at a time slept on floors of overcrowded facilities for days beyond the legal limit. Oh wow, is that under the Joe Biden administration? Rather, she was deputized by Biden. The diplomatic mission of solving the root causes of immigration from countries like Guatemala, now it just sounds like you're nitpicking. Because the problem at the border was mass illegal immigration, and that's mostly what Matt Gaetz is referring to when he says this. Please just stress again. Gaslighting you. They're lying. There's no way these people don't know what they're doing. I'll give you my first-hand experience. Here's Axios too. This one's really fun. Axios says, the Trump campaign and Republicans have tagged Harris repeatedly with the border czar title, which she never actually had. That's strange, because I read Axios. I do. The source we use here at Timcast. So I worked for these companies. I know these journalists. There is no way they just got. They didn't just forget. And they use Google every day. Which means the person writing this article for Axios in this tweet knows full well that they themselves, let me give you a good example. Say, I love it. Ready to go. Ukraine efforts to sabotage Trump backfire. I'll pull up another example for you. Whoa! Ukraine tried to sabotage Trump's campaign and it backfired? Politico.com? Hey, it's right up there in the URL. You see Politico.com. January 11th, 2017. My oh my. 7.5 years ago. Time flies. I was but a young man of 30. And now here we are. Almost a decade. And it is true. Reported Ukraine sought to interfere in the 2016 election.
Oh.
Let me do this. I will now search for Ukraine interfere Trump Russian disinformation. And this one was from Political EU. Politico.eu. Here we go. Here's another story from how a Russian disinfo op got Trump impeached. Kremlin may have been laying the groundwork for blaming Ukraine for 2016 as early as 2015. 3 weeks after Election Day, the Kremlin officially floated a theory that would ultimately lead to the only third presidential impeachment. Ukraine's, quote, Ukraine seriously complicated the way of Trump's election by planting information aimed at damaging his campaign chairman Paul Manafort, the spokeswoman for Russia's foreign ministry told reporters on November 30th, 2016, accusing the Ukrainian government of scheming to help elect Clinton. President-elect Trump, by this time, was busy staffing up his incoming administration with top advisors, blah, blah, blah. Russian officials offered no evidence on that day or any other day. This story is from January 22nd, 2020. Politico has a story from January 11th, 2017. It says, Ukrainian government officials tried to help Hillary Clinton and undermine Trump by publicly questioning his fitness for office. They also disseminated documents implicating a top Trump aide in corruption and suggested they were investigating the matter, only to back away after the election. And they helped Clinton's allies research damaging information on Trump and his advisors, a Politico investigation found. Yeah, that was Paul Manafort. This is Politico, reporting quite literally what Politico then claimed was Russian disinformation. Both stories are still up. Neither have been retracted. So what's the conclusion? How could both of these things be true? Media is lying to you, and they know they are lying. And they are lying to you intentionally. Now the question is, which of these stories is true? I can certainly tell you this. Paul Manafort ended up going to jail, and it was because of documents that were released from Ukraine, so I can only conclude that the story from Ken Vogel and David Stern is correct. That in January 2017, they said Ukraine interfered. Here we go. Look at this. A Ukrainian-American operative who was consulting for the DNC met with top officials in Ukraine and Washington in an effort to expose ties between Trump, Paul Manafort, and Russia. And Manafort went to jail for this. So it's been a long time. Paul Manafort sentenced to additional 43 months in prison. Manafort accepted a plea deal in the case of September 2018, admitting to money laundering, tax fraud, and lobbying connected to his work for Ukrainian politics. If it is true that Paul Manafort was working illegally with Ukrainians, and that Ukraine is alleged had released this information to get him in trouble and damage the Trump campaign, how could this Politico story, that it was a Russian disinfo op, be true? Well, who wrote this one? Tasha Bertrand. She does not have a good track record. She's accused over and over again of fabricating news. There you have it. So Kamala was the board.
I rage God.
Still is. It was a title that the media bestowed upon her because she's supposed to be solving these problems, and now here we are. Lying, cheating, stealing, and manipulation. What can you do about it? Well, I can pull up every example which way, all day, every day. I do nothing but read the news all day, every day, nonstop, and I've done that my whole life. Here we are. I hope this is enough direct evidence for all of you. Now, for those that actually watch this channel regularly, you know this already because I break the evidence down all day, every day, and I believe I've clearly laid out my case. Paul Manafort jailed for work in Ukraine. Politico reports Ukraine was releasing documents to damage Paul Manafort because they were trying to help Clinton get elected. And then several years later, Politico goes, actually, that was Russian disinformation. Fine, then expunge Manafort's record. Oh, I'm sorry. One of those stories is not true. Two truths and a lie, I suppose. And we know the lie came from Tasha Bertrand. So be it. My friends, smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with all your friends, become a member at timcast.com to support our work. Follow me on X at Timcast and Instagram at Timcast. Instagram's got clips from the show, clips from the culture war, and me skateboarding. X is, I don't even know what shenanigans and complaints. So follow me there. I'll have updates for you. For everybody else watching live, we'll grab some super chats, so stick around. And for everybody watching the clip, we'll see you all in the next segment. Let's grab some super chats, my friends. Here we go. We got a regular chat. Someone said, "Thank God for Timcast IRL. Glenn Beck is terrible."
Oh, he's not that bad.
I like Glenn. I don't know. I don't watch him all the time. But appreciate the support. I just want to know what's true, what's not. And I think you deserve to as well. Let's grab some more. The Elder Millennial says, "Tim, all this news about Biden is a psyop to make us talk about Biden. When they shadow campaign Kamala, should we not even talk about it?" You know, that's probably the shadow campaign. I'm going to close out a bunch of these tabs, make it easier to get into the next story. The next one's a lot of fun, my friends. They're coming after funding. I think we have the story here. Nope. Oh yeah, let me just show you this real quick. All of the archived news. Kamala Harris's job on the border. Kamala Harris's job on the border. Yeah. The next story I've got lined up for you guys. The Trump campaign files FEC complaint against Biden and Harris over the transfer of campaign funds. Yeah, you can't do that. And so this is actually getting pretty big because FEC chair is saying it, Democrats and Republicans are saying it. So we'll grab some super chats before we get it. Have a sip of this. Your butt, excellent. All right. And I will also stress that is the first time in a morning show I've taken a drink. I think we should talk about Biden. But I do agree that this is part of the shadow campaign of some sort. They are creating a circumstance where there's basically two people to complain about. Kamala Harris is in the Biden administration, but she's not Biden. So all the Biden problems are Biden problems, but all the Biden successes are Kamala's successes. See the game they're playing? The Ice Caps says we should be pushing to allow them to draft where they want. Military is weak because nobody trusts our
Talking about Mars.
Forcing people. Oh, I read that last time.
Honestly, is an interesting idea.
The Arctic operator says, "Hey Tim, I saw an ad for RFK last night. It got me looking at his platform. Not against him, but I want to know more. Give me info on the place to look for more info. I want to be informed." His website. Yes, I like RFK Jr. a lot. I think he should cut a deal with Trump. He's not going to win. His best path right now is cuts a deal with Trump, endorses Donald Trump. I would. Oh man, Trump appointing RFK to an environmental role in the government would be absolutely epic. We talk about this stuff all the time. Lubricants comes to the show, seed oils, environmental toxins, biphenyls, phthalates, all of that stuff. All due respect to my good friends over at Gayaki and their delicious yerba mate, aluminum cans are lined with plastic. So even pretty sure even my delicious lemon spin drift,
Delicious.
lined with plastic. Worse, more liquid death. I love liquid death. They're fantastic. They've got these light teas, low sugar in them, and it's just tea with a little bit of sugar. There's no artificial sweeteners or anything. And they're like, death to plastic. Their cans are lined with plastic. You can't do about it. This stuff is causing us problems. They're endocrine disruptors. They're causing developmental issues. RFK gets it. He talks about it with passion. I don't think he should be in charge of anything but that. That's why he wants to be president. So Donald Trump could say, RFK, Roberts, how would you like to be in charge of environmental issues for the federal government? I guess what, EPA and other issues. And I don't know about environment. Actually, yeah, EPA. And RFK should say, like, that's what I want. Because when I talk to RFK, talk about culture war stuff and politics and foreign policy, he gives you the line answers, but you talk about plastics in the water and he lights up. That's it. Emax Tactical says, is it just me or does he look more bald than a week ago? He or Joe Biden? Stop wearing a hat, I can't see. Joe Biden, he does. Yeah, for real. Yeah. Let's see, Veldrin Olis says, lose your right to vote if you vote Democrat. No voting. No, I'm not for that. It's Ricky says, uh-oh, just jumped on me. YouTube does. Let's see if I can.
YouTube does.
When YouTube loads all the super chats at once.
It pops.
All right. I think I lost you, Ricky. Jeez, a lot of super chats came in. What can I do? Oh, let's see. Grease Monkey says, I didn't get a notification of you going live. Is YouTube shadow
Grease
banning
Monkey.
you? Go to this channel's video section, copy the title of any one of the videos, post it on Google, and tell me if it comes up. Because it's YouTube and Google, basically the same company, it should. This channel is beyond shadow banned. Alright, so here we go. It's Ricky says, if they enact the 25th Amendment and remove Biden from office, then Trump supporters will have to lose the 47th year, which would support Kamala. Well, that'd be hilarious! Trump would be the 48th president. What a weird cycle. I hope they do it just because it would be funny. AK Storm 49 says, if Trump gets in and starts mass deportations, will there be any way to counter the media onslaught? There will be visuals that will be horrible. This is why my stance is not just blindly supporting Donald Trump's plans for mass deportation. This is going to be one of the most difficult and most delicate situations this country has ever experienced. And I insist, may demand, that when this is carried out, any Donald Trump associated federal agency does things 100 times beyond the fold. What I mean by that is, no trucks, no trains, no buses. It's going to be meticulous and granular. There's going to be unarmed, I mean it, men with polo shirts on, knocking on doors, and walking people out. And you may say, but Tim, some of these people could be dangerous. In those circumstances, we have backup. But what they should target first and foremost, legal immigrants, living peacefully but still breaking the law, and they will get arrested. And I do not believe they should be cuffed. I believe we start with the lightest approach possible. We must make sure, not just for humanitarian reasons, but for political and PR reasons, this is done so far above board that they will never question it. I want to see a nice young man in a polo shirt with a clipboard walking an illegal immigrant to a car where they're driven to deportation processing. And it's got to be done at a granular level and a decentralized level, because I don't want to see crowded holding facilities. Nope. Deportations must be swift. Planes, fine for the deportation process at the facilities. They should be using individual cars. And you may be saying, Tim, that's impossible, it's so difficult. Good. Better be, because I will be the first criticize and slam anyone in this administration if they're pulling off ridiculous visuals, armed men with guns, throwing people in the back of trucks. I will not accept that. I will not tolerate that. I don't think any of you should either. We cannot allow this crisis to become a catastrophe. Tragedy. People who are here illegally and broke the law need to go back to their home countries. They can apply to come here legally. That's it. People who are here with visas need to file their paperwork now, and if they can't, then it's time to go home. You are not entitled to our labor. It's a country that was built by those who came before us, that we have inherited, and we want to share. We do as a nation.
Get on your mats.
If Donald Trump says trucks, trains, and all that jazz, it's not about the intention of Donald Trump. It's about the degradation of the system and the ramifications of it. Individuals trying to load 100 illegal immigrants onto vehicles, from facilities is logistically a nightmare. The conditions will devolve. Their health conditions will be bad, and I say we don't tolerate it. No one said it was going to be easy. We are the good guys, and that means we do what's difficult to make sure we do the right thing. And that means what we do will never be the easy route. But I tell you this, there's a right and a wrong way to take care of this. The evil route would be, not our problem, take the easy path. Roll them all in, cram them all in, send them all up, it's their fault. I reject that. I believe that have to be even in circumstances of criminal. The worst criminal offender you can think of. If they are about to act to endanger someone's life or cause great bodily harm, they have the right to use ultimate force. But we should not be glad. And there are people who take glee in this. And I'm like, no. You watch a video. Burglar, robber, walks in Brazil with a gun waving around. And then some guy sitting in the restaurant kills him. And people cheer for this. Do not mistake it. Celebration of such an incident is because the people were saved. You should never celebrate that a man died or a woman died. That's not how you be a good person.
Yeah.
What's inspired me growing up is the great men of history who have done what needed to be done. Lots of death. And they said, I do not celebrate that I had to do this. It is not with pleasure that the enemies of my nation had to die. With duty. And I think about the story of Native Americans saying a prayer for the animal they killed. That's the kind of mentality of you should never celebrate death. Celebrate justice and accountability, not death. What I would prefer to see when someone comes into a store with a gun waving it around, threatening the lives of people, I would prefer to see they live and they be disarmed. That's the best of all worlds. Justice be served, penalty and person who committed the crime learns. Are they get a learning moment? Called that. It's the strangest thing to me too when people cheer for death. And I'm like, you realize the evil man committed atrocities upon death is removed from the circumstances that they've created. It's as if dying is the worst imaginable thing. Certainly if they go to hell. I think it's important that people, that things live with what they've done. They experience it, they live it. I just think death is bad. And I think we have to be careful because there are children. Watch. And the message I want to send to the next generation is, men of great stature and of reasonable mind and great leadership do not want to kill. They want accountability and justice.
True that, yo.
Which sometimes does die. Lesson the kids should learn is that we preserve life. That's universal. Yes, that involves abortion and pro-life issues. But when you get people who are cheering, you'll be like, yeah, they gotta move, you get what you get, all that. There's kids watching that and they're being like, death, celebrate. I don't like it. That's just me. Don't get history. Alright, let's grab this next story, my friends.
This next story.
Post-millennium. Trump campaign. Democrats and Republicans in the FEC are quite upset that Kamala Harris is trying to illicitly absorb donations that were given to Joe Biden. Apparently what they're saying is, you can't do that. Which would mean all the donations Biden received will have to be released back to the donors. Talking about $81 million for Kamala Harris.
Dollars.
I don't know how much that's going to matter. Here's the story first from Post-Millennial. Breaking, Trump campaign files FEC complaint against Biden and Harris over transfer of campaign funds. Donald Trump's presidential campaign filed a complaint with the Federal Election Commission on Tuesday against Joe Biden and Kamala Harris to accuse the president and vice president of violating campaign finance laws by transferring Biden's campaign funds to Harris's campaign. And I questioned this. I was like, how is that legally allowed? They're two different people. The question I brought up was, if someone can give Joe Biden $100, no, it's a maximum, 30. I think it's 3,300 right now. Is that what it was? Something like that. And then Joe Biden goes, I'm dropping out of the race. Kamala, you can have my money. I've never donated to Kamala. Can't I give her another? No, that's double the maximum. How is this possible? Quote, Kamala Harris is seeking to perpetrate $91.5 million heist Joe Biden's leftover campaign cash. A brazen money grab that would constitute the single largest excessive contribution and biggest violation in the history of the Federal Election Campaign Act of 1971, as amended. Dick Warrington, Trump campaign's general counsel, wrote in the complaint for New York Times. He said that Biden and Harris were flagrantly violating the act by making and receiving an excessive contribution of nearly $100 million, and for filing fraudulent forms to the commission purporting to repurpose one candidate's principal campaign committee for the use of another candidate. Warrington continued, to date, Biden for president has provided no indication that it will return or redesignate all of its general election contributions. Thus, each and every general election contribution received by Biden for president is an excessive contribution in essence. He argued that Harris is not Democrats' official nominee yet, and Biden cannot keep the general election funds he received. He is no longer a general election candidate. The lawyer asked for a prompt response from the FEC on the matter. As Harris is in the process of committing the largest campaign finance violation in American history, and she is using the commission's own funds to do it. Biden's spokesman did not immediately respond to a request for comment from the Times. The FEC spokeswoman said the agency could not comment on pending enforcement matters. But we have this from Patrick Webb on X, who is comms for leading reporter, says, Democrats are asserting the legality of transferring Biden's campaign funds to Kamala Harris's campaign and are requesting the FEC uphold the interpretation of the law. This follows questions raised by FEC Chairman John Coetzee, who maintains that such transfers are illegal and against FEC campaign finance laws, insisting that the funds should be returned to donors. This is a letter from not just Democrats, actually mostly Republicans, but this is the 118th Congress of the United States Committee on House Administration. They write, Dear Chair Coetzee, as ranking member of the committee charged with oversight of the Federal Election Commission, I write to clarify a possible misrepresentation that appeared on your recent social media activity that may sow misguided doubt and confusion about the state of presidential election and the Commission's impartiality. July 21st, 2024, in light of President Biden's patriotic decision to prioritize the well-being of the nation for his own political ambition, you posted on X a contextless quote from 11 CFR. Reasonable observer could interpret the post, which you provided no explanation or analysis, as to imply that Vice President Harris may not be entitled to the finances from a campaign for which she has been named candidate for almost 4 years. Further, your comments on National Public Radio yesterday morning seem to invite administrative challenges and litigation concerning the issue, which is unnecessary given clarity of the law and will, if done for purely partisan purposes, increase the acrimony and division in our political system. So actually, it sounds like this letter is saying she should be able to keep them. Failing to provide important information about our campaign finance laws will fuel uncertainty and mistrust in our campaign finance system, specifically, and our democracy generally. As you know, a broad cross-partisan group of campaign finance experts agreed Vice President Harris may use the full resources that the Harris for President campaign has accumulated thus far. As Vice Chair of the Commission, Ellen Weintraub made clear, bottom line is, the same campaign committee, it is the same campaign committee. Hans von Spakovsky, Republican member of the Commission, who has testified as a campaign finance expert in front of the Committee on House Administration 3 times this Congress, has affirmed that Vice President Harris has access to the campaign's finances. Okay, so I'll clarify from earlier. My understanding was that there was contest from Democrats and Republicans. It looks like Democrats are saying it's totally fine if she has this, and Republicans are saying no, which makes a bit more sense. Campaign finance experts beyond the Commission's current composition also understand.
It doesn't matter. They're going to waste all their money.
Access the resources of the Harris for President campaign. Trevor Potter, a Republican former chair of the Commission and two-time general counsel to the presidential campaigns, Buffalo Republican Senator John McCain, made clear that because Biden and Harris share a campaign committee, the vice president and her running mate can continue using the campaign's existing funds for the general election if she is on the Democratic ticket.
The deep state parasites.
That presents us with an interesting conundrum. She is not currently the nominee. Biden was the nominee. So that's the question raised by Donald Trump. And this makes a bit more sense. We have this story from the 22nd. Republican FEC chair suggests Harris may not get Biden war chest. Sean Coetzee, the Trump-appointed chair of the Federal Election Commission, suggested Monday that Vice President Harris may not be able to access the millions of dollars remaining from Biden's campaign, which many campaign finance lawyers say is right. Biden dropped out, we get it. The campaign has just under $96 million in cash on hand as of June 30th. Even before the campaign filed to change its name, Harris was listed as a candidate alongside Biden on the paperwork. Campaign finance lawyers previously told The Hill that Harris would be able to access the funds if she becomes the nominee. Democrats have started to coalesce behind Harris. But Coetzee called the situation complicated and suggested it would be challenged in the agency and in the courts. I think it's really complicated is the short answer, he told the organization on NPR. What he's attempting to do is give his entire committee, cash and all the assets, over to another person. I think it's going to have to go through a process through the FEC. I expect there's probably going to be challenges to that at the agency, and probably in the courts as well. Democratic Commissioner Dara Lindenbaum chaired the commission last year, pushed back on the suggestion that Harris would not be able to access those funds. It's pretty clear Vice President Harris can continue using the campaign committee and its funds, Lindenbaum told The Hill. Steve Roberts, former general counsel to Republican presidential candidate Vivek Ramaswamy, was also skeptical of Cooksey's comments. This interpretation is likely wishful thinking, Roberts told him. Since the declarations of candidacy for 2024, reasonable interpretation is the Biden campaign committee is shared between Harris and Biden, perhaps uniquely so because they are incumbents. Otherwise, in 2020, Trump-Pence wouldn't have had a shared committee, but would have set up separate committees and had their own contribution limits. I still fundamentally disagree with the idea that Kamala Harris should be able to get this. I'm going to mention that Cooksey was appointed in 2020 by Trump. Last week, it's in the nation. While Cooksey told NPR it's entirely reasonable to scrutinize the political motivations of members of the six-person commission, which may have no more than 3 members from each political party at any given time, he defended his record. I always try to approach these issues based on what the law requires and what is the best policy, but not what's going to give people a certain partisan advantage in the short term. Cooksey has sided with Democratic candidates and committees in opinions that have angered many campaign finance reform advocates, including recent decisions that allow candidates to raise unlimited funds for state-level ballot measures, restrictions from certain mass text messages, make it easier for candidates and super PACs to raise unlimited sums of money to coordinate on canvassing. This way. Then one comment from the Vivek Ramaswamy's guy. Trump and Pence were running together, but Trump is the candidate. I will stress this. When Donald Trump is chosen as the nominee, he then says, here's
what
my
the
running
heck
mate.
is going on here?
The
When I
primary
click this,
process
does that
is for a single individual.
make it it?
That person then chooses a running mate. Donations are given largely to the individual candidate who won the popular vote primaries, not the running mate. Kamala Harris did not earn these donations. The donations were meant for Joe Biden, who happened to have Kamala as a running mate. They should be immediately turned back over to the donors,
come on.
and then reaffirm their decision to support Kamala Harris, if that's the case. But the idea that I would imagine I ran for office. I said, everybody, give me money, give me money.
There should
And
be like a
then,
little
I'm
checkbox
gonna
right
run
here, so like
John
I
Doe.
know that I
Like, you're giving me
selected
money.
this.
And then
Because
it's
when I clicked
$11,
off
I go,
or whatever,
I'm quitting. All your donations are going to John Doe. You're going to be like, whoa, whoa, whoa. He's not going to win. I don't want him to have the money. I never agreed to give him money. Yeah, that's BS, and that's the game they're playing. This could be massively detrimental to Kamala Harris if anyone has the balls to actually enforce this stuff. Sillier. The idea that people were choosing Kamala Harris, they didn't vote for her in the primary.
Okay, let's go.
They voted for Joe Biden. Well, but she's running with him, yeah, as a selected running mate. She didn't get a single delegate the first time. So why should she just get to keep all of this money? Certainly think she should not. I'll wrap this one up. I'll keep this one short.
All right.
For those that are watching, smash the like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends. Head over to timcast.com, click join. We're going to have that show up for you at 8 p.m. over at Timcast IRL, and one more segment coming up at 6 p.m. talking about some social issues. Story that's crazier and crazier than Mr. Story, so we'll have that up for everyone watching. Stick around, I'll read some of your super chats, and I'll see the rest of you at 6 p.m. Let's grab some super chats from y'all. And then, of course, we have the last big story. I read this on the members only show last night, but it looks like employees of Mr. Beast are now coming out and saying Mr. Beast knew about the allegations of grooming and worse.
Come on, Mr.
And,
Beast, get that jackass
actually get a lot
off of your
worse.
team.
So I'm just, let's see.
He
I'm gonna
betrayed
pull up,
his,
you know what? I'm just going to pull up Drama
his
Alert,
family.
who's been directly implicated by this stuff in this. And then where's this tweet? Oh, then I do. We'll talk about this in just a second. In the meantime, we will grab some super chats from. So let's pop over.
He was too interested in his
Craig Bragg says Trump is a living monomyth. An agent of the Logos, the universe is a plan for him. Agents of Pseudos will fail. Oh, that's a great one. Agents of Pseudos and Logos. Mitch says, awesome show, Tim. Keep up the coverage. Big fan from Australia. Love to hear it. Thank you so much for your support, for all your super chats. These morning shows have been a smashing success. Someone commented earlier that, let me tell you guys the breakdown in the process for how we do the show. Previously, Sit down, I find an open story, big news, I record for 22 minutes, stop. I then begin doing research again. Record once again around 11 o'clock, from 1 p.m. Find a big story. Then around noon, I record what I usually think are like slightly smaller and quicker segments, like FEC one was only about 10 minutes. Sometimes they're a little longer if it's cultural. Then they're uploaded, scheduled, and then I edit them all together for the podcast, and it's about an hour and 15, hour and 20 minutes. Someone said in the earlier chat that by doing the whole thing live and recording segments in the middle of it, I'm doubling my views. Absolutely, I'm not. The morning live streams get about the same amount of views as the morning show, the first recording itself. So the one main benefit to doing it live is it's a lot more fun. Super chats have me talk about a lot more things.
Okay, one of you go up here.
The show takes less amount of time to produce, but is longer because of the super chats and interaction that we have. And it's just, super chats are greatly beneficial too. But the real issue mostly is it's more fun. And so it's been working out. I hope it continues to work out. And I'm enjoying myself. I hope you guys are enjoying running live shows too. 2 hours of coverage and super chats. Jay Drax says, why the AM live? There's no more multi-vid today. We still have the vids up. So the idea is, instead of doing the opening morning segment, and then a 1 p.m., 4 p.m., and 6 p.m., we do a 10 to noon live show. First segment would have been my morning segment. I record the 1 p.m., 4 p.m., and 6 p.m. in that, upload them as clips for people who don't want to show. Seems to have been working out very, very well, and will continue. In fact, there's even been extra segments, like I think I had like a rant earlier about Trump's assassination attempt, that segment itself. All right, let's go. Thomas Conservative says the Democrats are 15 years away from being Hezbollah. Yikes. Maravi says, to all the WWE fans who did the lie, cheat, steal better, Dems or Eddie Guerrero? What we got? Let's grab some more super chats. This is Patrick says, when will we acknowledge it's not willful ignorance, they want us all dead? You are the carbon. I noticed this, that's sad. But that's why they say don't have kids. I was in Chicago at the airport, and the family restrooms all said run them instead. And I'm like, well, look, dude, if I got a choice, I'm going in the... He's like, do I want to go into the public restroom where I can smell everything? No, dude, look. Okay? You give me a single use, I can walk in, I can lock the door, and it don't stank, I'm using that one. But these used to be family restrooms. They have the diaper changing station. They just swapped that out with all gender. Why? Well, man, less people are having kids. More people.
I still believe that they should make it so that you can
ideology.
build more than one automated parking building.
We get more complaints about not having an all-gender bathroom than we do about getting a family bathroom. Just change the family one to the all-gender one. So, now I imagine if parents are like, where do I change my baby? Good luck, I guess. Sooner Ma says, recommend watching Solo Leveling and Dan Machi for your anime lineup. It would be awesome work, Tim. Solo Leveling, I've abandoned. I was a big fan early on. For those that don't know, the show is like, at some point around the world, portals open up and monsters come. There's an awakening where people gain powers, and it's very much like a video game RPG fantasy, but portals to the real world. So they're going in these portals, and there's dungeons, and they fight goblins and dragons. And this one guy, all of a sudden, he's like super weak, gains the ability to live. So every time he fights, his experience points increase, screens appear in front of him saying you've gotten stronger, and so he becomes stronger and stronger very rapidly. Problem I have with the show is, at a certain point, it just becomes angels versus demons, and the whole leveling component is just erased from it, and then it's like 7 gods versus, like, off. Here we go. Portland Trainhorn says, I will be 45 years old here soon. I would enlist in the military if needed. Trump Vance 2020. When needed. Like if this I'm 38. They're gonna go for the 18-year-olds before they go for me. So I gotta be honest. Based on the current
I can't join the military again because my body's fucked up.
I'm still the higher end of physical capabilities. So if it really did come to war, they may end up drafting me before a lot of other younger people. Incapable of That's true for a lot of conservatives. But if the United States was invaded, better believe I'm going to be like, probably safe to say the best course of action for. I don't think it makes sense to send Tim Pool on the front lines. I'm not a fighter. I want to find fighters for that. But I'll do what I can. Whatever that may be. Patience. That, I guess. They'd have me doing like what Tom Cruise was doing in Edge of Tomorrow. They're going to be like, get a camera and go film stuff and convince everybody we're winning. And I'd be like, I'm probably the wrong guy for that because if we're not winning, I ain't going to say we are. I get morale, though. I'll try to rally people. Or Tome says, Andrew Wilson actually made that same argument about the draft. Now, it's not fair that women can vote to go to war but not partake. He thinks if you service the state for a time, you can vote. Yeah, women overwhelmingly vote Democrat. Democrats overwhelmingly support war. That's going to result in me having to go fight and die if this escalates to World War and other young men. These women are voting without any implication to themselves, and I reject that. That should be uncomfortable. All right, my friends, let's get into this story. The Mr. Beast drama continues. New allegations coming out about Chris Tyson, who has resigned from Mr. Beast for allegations of grooming a minor. Employees have come out claiming that Mr. Beast knew that it's actually substantially worse. In one video, a former employee, alleged former employee, I believe it's been confirmed to say alleged, says it's so bad what's going on behind the scenes with Mr. Beast that when this information comes out, he's going to get dropped by all his brand partners. And he says, Amazon, get your money back. That's shocking.
That is bad.
What's crazy is the allegation is basically that Chris Tyson has been accused of other things, but has threatened to sue Mr. Beast.
Really
so
bad.
Get rid of. Here's a story from SCNR. Ava Chris Tyson splits from Mr. Beast for allegations of grooming a minor emerge. Seeing recent events, we've mutually decided it's best I permanently step away from all things Mr. Beast and social media to focus on my family and mental health.
Yeah, you abandoned your
Tyson,
family, you
Chris,
jackass.
has been involved, I think it's actually CHRIS, not KRIS. Been involved with Mr. Beast, born James Stephen Donaldson. It's the earliest. Who wrote this one? Chris Bergman. Born Mr. Beast. Born to joy. Okay. Since the early years of Donaldson's YouTube career, Mr. Beast currently boasts over 305 million subscribers, over 55 billion
Get on your
views.
meds. Get on your meds.
I'm just gonna, real quick, tell you why that is. It's because YouTube puts. It's good content. People like watching it. So YouTube says, we choose for this to be on the front page. Reality is also, Timcast has a very high retention. And they say, we do not want to put this on the front page. If they did, we'd also get millions. But don't get me wrong, Mr. Beast makes good content. And so they say, we want an entertaining show to be on the front page, people watch it. People then subscribe to the channel to large numbers, recommended by default. There's other shows that do well too. Attention time is up, but YouTube makes an editorial decision not to allow, say, Timcast IRL page. How about that? In July 23, Tyson adopted the name Ava and came out as trans. Allegations against Tyson's surfaced
Too much porn.
by YouTuber Prism42 in the last month. Though it came to an end on Monday after Drama Alert shared an X thread documenting the claims. In the month since allegations were originally made on Prism42's channel, Tyson sued their social media.
Clearly watched too much.
According to claims against Tyson, fellow Mr. Beast star developed a sexually inappropriate relationship with a 13-year-old minor, later meeting with that minor when they were 16. Tyson also joked about sending nude pictures to the minor, according to X posts, then Twitter, dating back to 2018. Now, we had Attorney General Andrew Bailey on the show in Missouri. He said, that right away sounds like enticement of a minor, which is a felony with a mandatory minimum 5-year prison sentence. The individual in question, who was 13 at the time, is now 20, says they were never groomed and they were just inappropriate, edgy jokes, confirming that this adult transgender co-star of Mr. Beast was sending adult sexual content, comments, jokes, or otherwise, to a 13-year-old who they later met up with. Now, this person says, we didn't just meet up, my family was there too. That just kind of makes it worse. Look, this is what this guy doesn't understand. He's a victim. He doesn't want to be a victim, I can respect that. But this is why we have protections for minors who can't consent or understand what is wrong. An adult man is sending sex jokes to a child. To a child! It's getting worse. Drama Alert says Chris Tyson from Mr. Beast is accused We have, of course, a statement. You may have seen the news break earlier yesterday of Chris Tyson quitting. Drama Alert says, overnight, more allegations on Chris Tyson have been posted to social media. Alleged 2019 let's pull this one. Alleged 2019 Snapchat messages between Chris Tyson and a 14-year-old time were posted as taken down. Messages. So first, an adult. How old is he in 2019? An adult should not be messaging a 14-year-old. And I believe the message was about selling bathwater. 14-year-old wanted to sell bathwater to them or something like that. They ask, however, do you believe these messages are real? We don't know for sure. Moving on, we can see former employees of Mr. Beast have alleged that Donaldson was aware of Tyson's behavior at the time. Let's play this clip for you guys. This stuff is absolutely wild. This person posted this video where you can see the Mr. Beast header, confidentiality and non-disclosure agreement. Well, it looks like this guy just broke that agreement.
Music. Hi, Mr. Hey, man. Good wrestling. I've just been driving by. My name's Dawson. I worked at Mr. Beast from February to May of this year, 2020. The tip of that iceberg. And when I heard many times that Ava Tyson is a major liability, but they can't get. Are you threatening legal action?
She? Come on, guys. Look, if you want to play the pronoun game and give respect to someone that you actually think is a nice person who is suffering from dysphoria, no problem. More power to you. But when we're dealing with someone who's accused of being a predator, I think it's silly to play that.
Those two. And all this information comes out. Oh, I promise you on everything, Mr. Beast is Amazon. You get your money back. Get your money.
This is interesting because the allegations he's making are not about this Ava Chris Tyson transgender co-star, but that Chris Tyson has dirt on Mr. Beast that if action is taken against Chris, will release information and damage Mr. Beast's reputation.
Well, Mr. Beast did.
Drama Alert owner and fellow YouTuber Keemstar.
Interesting.
He
didn't seem like a horrible person. And again, we all are.
Mr. Beast had connected him with the alleged minor using the handle Lava. So this is the story here. This is Mr. Beast saying, Keemstar saying, Mr. Beast connected me directly to Lava, the alleged Chris Tyson groomed victim. Lava, I was not groomed by Tyson. I did not meet Chris Tyson by myself. I met Chris with the Mr. Beast crew with my family present. I'm in a Discord with Chris Tyson when I was 13, and edgy, inappropriate jokes were said. That's it. Okay, I just gotta say, that confirms. Now, what A.G. Bailey said was, you'd have to basically assess the mens rea, mental state, perpetrator at the time. What were the intentions of sending messages? Well, I have to wonder about them meeting up later and what the intention is. Keemstar later alleged Tyson has expressed support for controversial artist Shadman, who has produced sexually suggestive cartoons featuring children.
For crying out
Shadman
loud,
previously
gather
turned
the
the drama into
trash.
owner's daughter at the age of 8 in an adult manner. Are claimed. Yeah, that's actually in the allegation video. Keemstar says Chris Tyson supported the cartoon. It's hard to read this stuff. It's the cartoon child porn artist Shadman that drew my daughter at age 8 in a sexual manner. This is a known fact. Privately, me and Chris Tyson even had a conversation about this roughly a month ago, as it still upsets me. It's not misinformation, it's a fact. You can see on YouTube Drama Reddit, you see there's a lot of transphobic BS that should be debunked. Chris Tyson was still a massive Shadman fan, even commissioning art from him, and a cameo out of Mr. Beast's videos. She is not as clean as a lot of y'all would like her to be. Why are you playing this pronoun game? If you really think this person is a groomer,
Chris Tyson
and
is a
all that
man.
stuff, would it not be fair to just say that
He is
this person
insane.
is a he, and that there's something else going on?
Einhorn is a
shared
man.
screenshot of an out-of-deleted post by Tyson, daring to say he enjoyed Ollie content, the term used to describe sexually suggestive cartoons of children. Tuesday afternoon, Tyson announced his permanent departure from Mr. Beast. saying, I would like to apologize for any of my past behavior or comments if it hurt or offended anyone. It's not my intent. Seeing recent events, we've mutually decided it's best I permanently step away from all things Mr. Beast and social media, focus on my family and mental health.
I'll be right back, guys. I need to go pee.
That sounds like you were going to be fired and you had no choice to make it seem amicable. Keemstar responded by saying, you didn't apologize a month ago in private when I brought up your behavior supporting cartoon adult images of his daughter. Wow. What changed? Although Keemstar has taken personal issue with Tyson, Drama Alert creator has said he believes Donaldson is a good person. I hate to put pressure on him like this, but he has to say something. You can't go around trying to save the world when you have someone so close doing things that are so disgusting. I don't believe that Mr. Beast is trying to save them. At all. Mr. Beast is generating content that he knows will make a lot of money. Because the things he's doing, he built a bunch of homes. He built homes for people who needed them. They sold right away. People immediately were granted these homes. They're like, okay, I'm selling it. A lot of the things he does, it's just I remember early back in the day when Oprah gave away a bunch of cars. And she's like, everyone's getting a free car. It's like, wow. And then they all had massive tax implications. Had to sell the cars or ended up in debt to the IRS. They were still given something of value. That's great, but it wasn't so simple. A lot of people were stressed out by it. Drama Alert says people are making racist and homophobic jokes en masse using Mr. Beast following the Chris Tyson allegations. Wow. Drama Alert gets more. Here we go. Look at this. Rolling Stone actually picked the story up. That's really interesting. Look, man, this is YouTube. This is the biggest YouTuber. I know there are bigger channels or there's big channels like this. I don't actually believe he has 300 million subscribers. Like, that seems kind of nuts. But when you go to YouTube, if you're on a brand new computer, you get Mr. Beast. Why is that? YouTube has decided this content is appropriate for everybody. It's good content. I mean, literally, Mr. Beast makes awesome stuff. I do think so. I take issue with some of it. I don't like how he tortures poor people who are dealing with serious crises. It's funny. Look, man, everybody loves the I'm going to give a waitress $1,000. But when you've got someone who's like, my mom's dying, it's like, well, if you could stand in this circle without going to the bathroom for 12 hours.
Yeah,
like,
that's pretty
messed up. That's brutal. Making poor people fight and struggle for money is just creepy and gross. That's why it's funny that, like, he mocked Squid Games. He is Squid Game. I don't care for it. I like that he helped people with cataract blindness, but it's nuts that
I mean, what else do you use that money for? Go out and help people.
He's got some other stuff.
You don't need that money for anything else.
Right. The whole Mr. Beast on oof, wow, these allegations are getting wild.
Go help people.
I've gathered 50 YouTubers to make them all fight for $1 million. It's kind of funny, right? I was looking at this. I saw this. It came out 10 days ago. It's his biggest video ever, I guess. And he's like, 50 YouTubers fight for $1 million. Yeah, I would do it. But I if someone came to me and was like, do you want to be part of this thing where you fight for $1 million? I'd be like, no. I don't get it. Whatever. I guess it's about being a part of a video with 187 million views.
Yeah.
I don't really care about the $1 million. But here's a question I have for you. World's deadliest obstacle course, 177 million views. $10,000 every day you survive in the wilderness, 169 million, 200 million views. Wow. Like, who's watching this? How many English speakers are there in the world?
Primarily kids. Which is fine.
I do think he's basically getting these views. I'm not saying he doesn't get them.
Now that's good. I saved 100 dogs from dying.
It's not the same
That's
as American cultural content. That being said, I do like that Lamborghini versus world's largest shredder or whatever. But if this dude's going to maintain this position, he's going to end up, like, it's a big company, he's got a lot of employees, he's going to end up surrounded by bad people like Chris Tyson, and you got to push back. You got to call it out. You got to shut it down.
Fix it.
I do think that most of the stuff he's put out as a recent are totally fine. Like, protect the yacht and you keep it, yeah, whatever. Did stuff in the past that have made me really, really cringe. This one, offering people $100,000 to quit their job, I detest and despise.
That's not enough.
I seriously do. I watched a video. There's an Instagram where people do this stuff. I don't like it. Guy pulls up to a drive-thru. a guy's like working at McDonald's, and he goes, "I got $10,000 in cash right now if you quit." And I'm like,
No.
bro, you're hurting so many people by doing that. Okay? Someone works at a fast food restaurant, you got a manager, you got staff. The other staff members who are making $15 an hour, $20 an hour, maybe, if they're lucky, depending on where they're at, maybe it's 10.
Yeah.
They're like, dude, if you leave us right now, we gotta
We're
pick that up
screwed.
for you, and we're not getting paid extra, and some dude's handing you cash. I watched one video where the guy's like, yeah, I'll take it, and I'll quit right now. And I'm just like,
Alright.
you know, I suppose what I'd do is I'd be like, I'll tell you what, I'll quit
I'll
right
tell
now,
you what.
take the 10K, but I'm gonna give each of the other employees working here $1,000. Actually, probably maybe 500. You could, but really, like you work in a job where you might make that in a few months. When you get the 10K now, I just think I can't stand this stuff. It's becoming way too Hunger Games for me. I'll tell you guys this.
Yeah, it kind of is.
Everybody
think
who's
about it.
ever served me at a restaurant knows I give massive tips. Just bonkers.
So do I.
Large tips. Especially depending on the size of the crowd.
I usually get
We
like
have
20, 25%.
6 or 7 people, like a company dinner. Like we sometimes will get a bunch of staff members. We'll go out and have dinner. We'll like
Why
sit
not?
down,
You know, it's-
basically like a meeting, but good food
If it's
That's
not going to
our
be
skin
any
color
skin
ones.
off my back,
off that
I get
off
good.
that bill. And so I do this because I can. We want to get a large group. It's hard work. But, we want to try and help people out. I don't film it. I don't make videos where I'm like, look how much money I'm giving away, or creating stipulations. We end up with these shows
Well, that's an
where
interesting
people
one.
know.
Oh,
that
they made it so you
people
can
who
make
don't
that
have
as
money are
a
desperate,
park now. I
needed
like that.
to pay their bills because everybody's underwater, especially in this economy. And then you get the likes of Mr. Beast
Sure.
being like, I got a bunch of money, I bet you want it. What would you do for it? It's like, dude,
Yeah.
I don't know, I'm just not a fan. I get it, some people are like free money, I'll take it, but I wouldn't do it. I'd never do it. Never would have done. Contests, competitions, I got a problem with that. But the idea of like debase yourself in exchange for money, get on your knees and I'll rain money and you're like, nah, I'm not interested. I'd rather drink from muddy stream. Here's what I want to do. I really want to do a game show. I want to do a trivia, political, cultural news
Oh, that's
game
not
show.
cool. I need more power.
Left versus right. Where we go out, we ask people, are you liberal or conservative? Liberal, would you like to be on a game show and be on Team Liberal or political trivia or important cash prize?
Stop it, Chiron. Relax.
The show is meant to be hokey and funny. Where it's like a guy who's like, my name's Jim, I work in construction, I live in Loudoun County, Virginia, and I vote Democrat. All right, the next guy's like, I'm also a construction worker, and I also live in Loudoun County, but I vote Republican. And then we're like, ooh, this is going to be good. Which team is going to win? Let me ask basic questions. We ask, let's see, we could do easy ones, we could do hard ones. It could be like, not necessarily like Jeopardy or Millionaire, but with a rate of easy, it's like easy ones. So, who is the 40th president of the or who was the 45th president of the United States? Easy one. That's one for $100. And it's like, Donald Trump, 45. Yeah, we all know that. And I also
Come
don't
on.
like the idea of fastest finger buzzer stuff. Nah. I think it'd be better off if it's like, you write down the answer, and then we see both your answers at the same time. And if you're right, you both earn the points. Then at the end, if you're tied, sudden death. I have a theory, though, that right is going to win, so it is. But I'll wrap this one up. Look, man. I like Mr. Beast. I just don't like some of his content. It is fun. It's very lowest common denominator. I don't mean that as an insult. I mean it's like anybody can watch it and enjoy it. It's TV. And so this stuff's got to get answered for. Because if people aren't willing to call out this kind of bad behavior, you're gonna fire the guy, but you can't come out with a statement being like, yeah. But I'll wrap it up. My friends, smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends. Become a member at timcast.com to support our work. Check out scnr.com for amazing news coverage and Tales from the Inverted World Live, the new show from SCNR. We're really excited
That'll do
this
for now, I
Of
guess.
course, if you like Weird, Wild, and Conspiracy every Sunday. I'll wrap it up there. We'll see y'all tonight at youtube.com/timcastirl. Thanks. For all the rest of you who are still here live, I'll grab a couple more super
The
chats
rest
before we
of you.
sign out for this morning. I gotta say, I have a lot of fun doing these morning live streams. That's what I've been doing now that I'm going to week. Riley Gerald says, now I have to choose Timcast News or Crowder. The only downside of the morning show. Love you, Tim. Next show. But here's the thing. I already had the 10 a.m. morning show every day for the past like 4 years. It's always been there. So doing it live now doesn't really change much. I suppose it's longer. It's a long show. But you can always watch Crowder and watch the show because we'll be there forever. 2-hour-long morning show with comments and various stories.
Yeah, but it's not the same.
And it's just way more fun. I'm also thinking we could do some really cool stuff with this too, because we've got these segments in. I bet we could also. I might Zoom some people. Maybe we'll set up some Zoom calls and expand the morning show into something more, because that doesn't interfere with the clips. Interviews that I've done on this channel don't do as well. People have never been different format. But if it's just in the morning stream, as like we hit 10 minutes with someone, that could be totally bad. And if the revenue increases on this show, which it looks like it is due to your super chats, then we could probably hire someone to do production for a guest. And this would be like a Zoom call for like 15 minutes with a representative, someone in the news, and we'd have that segment. But we'll see. For now, it's just more fun to go live. That's just the way it is. Hopefully I can keep pulling it off. I'm going to wrap things up. Here we go. C-Dub says...
So much trash, goodness.
YouTube doesn't take a cut.
Alright, you know what?
Really difficult.
I've got to fix this.
It is. Their stream, I think it's... what is it? Yes. I don't know. It's difficult, though. I'm going to wind things down for now. We've got some more filming to do. We've got a lot of projects in the works culturally that we're working on today. Some big news coming up. So I'm really excited. Yesterday I filmed on my Instagram. I did a switch blunt switch flip and a switch blunt switch heel flip the day before. Get my sea legs back. I haven't skated mini ramp in quite a long time. But I must stress, and this one really irks these like hater skaters. They really don't like me saying that I'm good at skating. They're offended by it. But yeah, it's too bad. I'm not like the best skateboarder in the world. When I was younger, I was way better. I haven't skated as much as I used to because we're doing news and all that, but I'm picking it back up because someone's got to push back on the hatred in the sport that is crushing it and pushing kids away, because if kids don't pick up the board, then skateboarding dies. And right now, there's more 30-year-old skateboarders than 15-year-old. And I think it's fair because there was a big boom in skateboarding in the 2000s, so all of us skate, but there hasn't been a resurgence, and it's the fault of the older generation, my generation, so I'm picking up that slack. We're going to make skateboarding great again. Yet, as an aside, Will Summer hit me up about the skate park story. I'm like, oh, here we go. All right, everybody, thanks for hanging out. We'll see you all tonight at 8 p.m. at youtube.com/TimCastIRL. Become a member at
final day of empty the shelters. I gotta tell you, we have about 20 or 30 more pets, and this is the hardest part because these are the pets that people look past, that they look over. Might have just come in, or they might say, you know what, that's a puppy, and I don't have enough energy to adopt a puppy. But we are so close. It is. Hi, Felix. We are so close, and I believe we can do this. And it's the last day of empty the shelters, and all of you have been showing up, and so many of you have ordering your limited edition bean shirt and your green cold brew coffee. So thank you, and thank you for covering 20%. Today's the last day, so you can't get it past today. So buy it now, or it's forever. That discount, the cool bean shirt. Try the cold brew. I want to know what you think. So thank you. Let's go sit with an dog, and special thanks to Bissell Pet Foundation for all the adoption fees. She rescued Animal Friends of the Valleys from all of the heart and soul that you put into this. Oh, lucky she rescued. They do that. A lot of fun. Okay, again, let's go sit with some dogs. No walks for you, and then. Angels are shining in. Okay. A blanket. dog never gets easier, even though I'm in the shelter a lot. But I will say this specifically: you see him not be able to make eye contact. Just shortly, you'll see him completely turn around, be really loving. Largely because we take the time to figure out what's wrong.
Numerous pharmaceutical companies and female child, for example. So you have to come up with novel alternatives that are going to be anti-catabolic, preserve tissue, keep somebody from wasting away in a state of without causing extreme viralization. So the kind of arms race of creating the best anabolic agent was numerous pharmaceutical companies came an array of compounds that to be, anabols, the boldenone, DHT derivative stuff. Oxandrolone, one of the more refined, more recent, although I need to go at this point. Primobolan, anolone, iron, is actually back with SHBG is probably one. Finding SHBG is sterolone. But yeah, the ideal scenario would be you're trying to segregate the anabolic from androgenic activity because testosterone is essentially equal. Based on rodent studies, you would find an equal amount of anabolic activity in muscle relative to androgen-like activity, masculinization. So you would try and take the compound, manipulate it to give maximum anabolic outcomes with a relative lack of androgenic outcomes to create something that men, women, children, anybody can take muscle wasting purposes. Issue, and they never successfully did it, but an array of compounds.
But if sort of 1 to 10 would be testosterone, let's just make this scale up. So 5 is testosterone. So it is halfway between completely anabolic and completely androgenic. DHT would be closer to 1, right? It's much more androgenic than it is anabolic. What is the furthest example you have that's closest to 10? Meaning the most anabolic?
Probably.
So, I mean, so one would think that would be like the drug of choice if you're a bodybuilder, right?
It often is. Typically, men will take, I'm not saying it's the only drugs that you're trying to get, because sometimes the side effects is higher. Anabol, for heavily water retention, that could help pushing your joints, doing heavy lifting for better leverages on a max out, be better with water retention around your muscle belly than if you in your muscle belly. But if you have a dry compound that is not a substrate for aromatase, and primobolan is extremely refined and specific in its action, protein accretion compound with relatively less burden energetic. But the side effects of it doesn't interact with aromatase because it's a DHT derivative, not a substrate for aromatase. It does not 5-alpha reduce into a bunch of different things. Predictable in it. But that's not always the desired outcome. Some people cosmetically inundated with water. Some people want to lift more weights. Then sometimes that can be helpful. Depends on the person. But yeah, that's skewing the further direction of anabolic relative to androgenic. You'd probably have Primobolan and Anavar.
Yeah, and I remember, again, just sort of reading Anavar also highly prized among athletes because
technically SARM.
Okay.
The most extreme.
So let's talk about SARMs then. Tell folks what those are.
Like I said, selective androgen receptor modulators. These were kind of designed. Some people might be more familiar with SARMs, clomid, minoxidil, or selective estrogen receptor modulators. These will interact in a tissue-specific way with estrogen receptors, various areas of the body. So you might have, inhibition of estrogen receptor activity in the breast for somebody who has breast cancer, for example. Versus you would have pro-estrogen activity in other areas of the body alone, which is what makes the selective action of it desirable. Actually, sort of choose where you get the activity you want, but also don't impact the health of other tissues and other areas of the body. The same idea was kind of adopted for SARMs. They tweaked and modified anti-androgens actually to make these compounds that would interact with the androgen receptor in a way that was tissue specific and try and get like pure anabolic androgenic, and proportionally it's successful probably than anabolic steroids, and the ceiling of anabolic activity seems to be lower. So people use SARMs, they do not gain as much muscle as anabolic steroids, and oftentimes in the quest for achieving a similar outcome, the higher and higher the dose gets, the less selective it becomes. So certain beta blockers, for example, as you get higher and higher, they become less receptor selective, and you get more like broad spectrum.
What are the typical SARMs? Potent or used SARMs?
LGD 403, probably it's called Gandrol. It was actually these compounds often get traded around companies so often. They have new code names every check. I think the recent one was, I think it turned into VK5211 by Viking Therapeutics, was the last company I'm aware of at it, and it was a phase 2 trial for hip fracture patients. Ostarine, Novo-SARM, probably the most well-known SARM, but it has not FDA approved. Seems to have not hit their target endpoint. Effective, and oftentimes women who are trying to achieve like a peak to step on stage to try to bridge the gap between not using anything and using steroids, something like an Ostarine, they don't viral themselves.
And yeah, it's funny. I always thought that was a SARM. These are these banned compounds in natural that are
super detectable in your body at all.
So how does one get these? Are these, if they're in phase 2,
same way you would get,
so it's all underground?
but compounding pharmacies, some of them make them.
Yeah, that's true. I've seen compounding pharmacies make a lot of
I've
things.
heard some wild, just like, oh yeah, I'm prescribed Tren. How does your pharmacy make?
Yeah, let's talk about Tren. We're going to get into.
It's that's actually classified as a steroidal SARM. Interesting. Right to women in the 80s, I believe. Beef up cattle, might even still be, but it is super anabolic. Gestagen activity, so it interacts with the progesterone receptor, causes severe night sweats, called Tren sweats. It also has this weird side effect called
Stop.
cough. It's like
Get on your mat. Tyrants.
no one
Matt.
can be sure of what is causing it, but it's the only drugs associated with the prevalence of a severe coughing fit, like you're having an allergic reaction or something after you take it. That you inject it and you feel all of a sudden this tightness in your chest, and then in seconds you're all backing up a lung for 2 minutes. Yeah, it's great.
I had a patient come to me a little while ago who was seeing some fancy doc in LA who had him high dose of Tren and GH. And again, there's always like, how do you get people off these things? Luckily, he wasn't.
Those compounds are more suppressive too, because they interact with the progesterone receptor significant. You get the negative feedback not just through AR, ER, but PR. Well,
So let's just kind of recap where you were on some of those. So did you talk about DECA and Androlone?
yeah,
Where it fits?
DECA is close to the anabolic side. It's not near the selectivity of a SARM at a therapeutic dose, but it is probably interestingly enough, the only steroid that you could probably use at a dose that will result in bodybuilder results without hair loss. It has a unique interaction where it gets so complicated when you think of pharmacology of this stuff, because it's like it will 5-alpha reduce into a dihydronandrolone, which is almost no androgenic activity. So in the muscle, a relative absence of 5-AR to retain the anabolic properties of androlone. Then your scalp, it'll 5-alpha reduce into this metabolite dihydronandrolone that has almost no androgenicity. You get like the muscle building without the hair loss. very interesting how you have to
So, do bodybuilders even take testosterone at this point, or do they?
almost always.
So, why are they taking testosterone when they have all of these more designer anabolics that seem to have an advantage over testosterone in every way?
Testosterone is the base because it provides your estrogen base layer.
Because none of these things provide aromatization. None of these-
The only other compounds that could act as replacements for test are things that are potent substrates for phase 2, but even then, you get these synthetic estrogen metabolites that have less predictable activity. So, for example, D-bol can use to like methyl estradiol, which potency of it at the estrogen receptor, it's not as predictable. Your body doesn't really know exactly. It doesn't have as predictable of outcomes in finding the base layer of broad spectrum, perfectly balanced androgenicity, estrogen where you want to choose. You know, it protects the body to some extent. Granted, at super physiologic dosages, you're in neurotoxic territory. Certainly, yourself with base of test, but it's better than no test for sure. No estrogen.
When you're saying it's super physiologic doses, you mean super physiologic doses of all of these other hormones?
Yeah, because I guess there's no actual physiologic level, but it's more just like the androgen burden on your body is exceeding what it would be from a natural testosterone.
So what is a bodybuilder? Let's just talk about an
I already got
IFBB,
that one.
you know, like a top 100, top 50 bodybuilder. What percentage of the year is he on some anabolic steroid?
90 to anabolic steroid, including
Yes.
physically. So
They basically have accepted the fact that they've completely suppressed and lost any endogenous production for life, and it's now just a question of how they set up testosterone plus or minus the other anabolics.
sort of, but I've seen firsthand multiple been shut down
Might
for
be that
decades,
creator
come
that
off
does
and
it.
restored after. And the
I want to
question
find no
comes up,
hospital
And they're using,
or no ambulance needed.
presumably FSH and
It's really
some of
pissing
this
me off
HCG,
that
just coming off the drugs and
ambulances
waiting long
aren't
enough.
getting to where they need to go.
But oftentimes you can then, it begs the question, would they have been there had they not used the drugs until then? Is that just what representative of where they declined to naturally? Or is it like a ceiling potential you've inhibited for so long?
Yeah.
You can't really say for certain. I think it's almost certain that you some level.
we have data on people who have been on anabolic steroids for 5 years or greater and the ability to forget spermatogenesis, just regain endogenous testosterone production.
Yeah, it's sparse, but it exists.
The
And
data are sparse, or the frequency of people who do it is sparse?
I believe there's a study that shows the recovery capacity in people who recover function. It's just like relatively arduous if you don't know what you're doing too when it comes to post-cycle therapy. Because you might have clearance of hormones and go to a crashed hypogonadal level that you're dealing with until you hopefully kick in gonadotropin, hopefully respond to those, hopefully reduction to a level that provides symptoms. The process isn't instant. Like you have to bleed these hormones into your system if you're using long-acting compounds too, which most people are. So that requires a lot of thought around bridging into your recovery when you go about doing that. People have to be as the androgens clear, they be on HCG to begin with to preserve testing function. You'd be using HCG to preserve.
Are these guys taking HCG the entire time they're on other drugs to just maintain some testicular volume?
Nowadays, it's becoming more understood that it's probably important. Back in the day, and even me, I didn't do it because I was just told it doesn't matter. You'll just recover fine when you want. So, I think more people are becoming aware, though, that stimulating activity in the Leydig cells is of reasonable, certainly, and ease your transition back into recovery while you're on drugs.
So at their lowest time throughout a year, they'd be on how much testosterone? They'd be only on testosterone, and they would be on...
Yeah, some people, they think that they're eating out by taking like a month off, but in reality, it's like of some of them work their way out of their system by then. They've been on grams of stuff that's achieved steady state, and you're just clearing 80% of it or something, and then you've never actually gotten it out of your system and recovered function, which could take months. So oftentimes they have either residual androgens in their system, or they're just like for the time they're trying to clear, or being on a base of TRT to bridge between blast phases, which are like high exposure points. So those bridges though of TRT, it's not actual TRT. It's like fitness industry TRT, where everyone's dose is 200.
Yep. And they cycle up during contests. Obviously, professional bodybuilding is tested, so the understanding is you take anything and everything as often as you want. Do they take sort of a more middle of the road set of compounds as they're bulking up, and then move to the more pure anabolic, less water retention as they're leaning out? Or this must be so much.
Yeah, in general, in an off season when you're protein accretion, building muscle, they are using it as they still use stuff, but they use less than when they are preparing for test. And the thought is, when I am trying to diet down aggressively,
When I'm in a calorie deficit, I need
even though it's like the threshold is reserve tissue at the end of the day, typically a fraction of what they're using. But to build muscle, they will typically be using a base of testosterone plus 2 anabolic agents. In general, it's going to be, androlone, something.
And how many total milligrams? Because they're about 1 to 1 to 1.
No, it depends on the person, how sensitive they are to estrogen. Because there's also interaction with, for example, DHT derivative. They also compete for aromatase, seemingly. So I've seen people on the same dose of testosterone with and without a synthetic DHT derivative have significantly lower estrogen without an aromatase. So they're actually low estrogen input competing for aromatase simply by using a synthetic anabolic on top. So it's like you have to modulate that accordingly.
That'll do, I guess.
So it's like, oftentimes if you're a very estrogen prone individual, you get gynecomastia easily, breast tissue development. These are things you are concerned of when you are dosages to levels that your body cannot regulate on its own to tissue formation. So some people at TRT levels, most people will have no issues with gynecomastia development. They have a good protocol in place and they're not obese or whatever. But at super physiological doses of test, not necessarily the case. But you might be able to modulate that activity down.
The background is more plates, more dates. I'm listening to
and then you get to the
him talking with Peter Attia about fitness stuff.
Because progesterone receptor agonism seems to be a stimulation. It actually provides stimulative input to breast tissue development too. Other things.
So I'm resetting the game.
Stimulate breast tissue. So you have IGF-1 stimulate breast tissue development, estrogen, progesterone, prolactin. So these are all things you have to consider when you're using which drugs.
How do these guys navigate this? Are there
Not well, typically.
even at the pro level?
Yeah, they just take random shit on it.
But, I mean, when you look at the guys on the Mr. Olympia stage, they
Responding well does not equate to health. It's like,
clearly.
no, I mean like the optimal choice and the most logical scientifically isn't always the one. You can raise a skin a cat and you can still gain similar amount of muscle with all these compounds in general. But you arrive there just might be more side effect burdensome, problematic in fill in the blank area. So
How many of these guys require surgery for gynecomastia?
most they typically proactively do it to make sure they don't have to. Dude, one of the things that's brutal is guys who choose their protocol based on gyno prone they are to those drugs. So I've seen people use use of dosages, aromatase inhibitors, SERMs, just to tolerate the androgen inputs. Some of the drugs that are substrate aromatase. So it's like, to use the drugs I need to gain the muscle, I'm going to get gyno development, which I can't have on stage because it looks cosmetically not pleasing, and I'll get down for it. So I'm going to use aggressive Novadex and aromatase inhibitors while I'm using the androgens to prevent gyno, so I can gain the muscle without the estrogen. But it's like, you can just imagine the androgenic signaling plus
Now we've
no
turned the mods
estrogen.
on.
It's like
Oh, hopefully the game runs okay.
horrible installation.
I was just getting
negative,
tired of all the death care needed,
It's just
all the
such a
trash
complicated regimen. I'm
trash
really
pickup. It
surprised
was
there aren't more
they were failing to pick up. It was irritating
Yeah, I
the
think
crap
they
out of
typically
me.
manifest in, like, we see early deaths. Granted, we see early deaths in all places, but these individuals are, at least you can say, lean. They're typically following meticulous diets and training regimens, so at that point it's kind of just body weight to drug exposure.
Like that.
Because they're sleep.
That exists in real life.
At least as much as it can be relative to related side effects. So, but yeah, we did. When people say, where are the bodies? I'm surprised we don't see more deaths. I think it just hasn't been as documented as it should be, because it's like, there are a lot of people that you will never hear about because big name in the industry that had heart failure.
Let's talk more about sort of how you measure this stuff. So, if you're taking testosterone, check testosterone. But which of these other compounds
Much better.
show up on a testosterone check, and how do you know if you're
Any of them
More Perkins.
through immunoassay testing. So if you use, for example, testosterone plus androlone, is derived from testosterone.
Why not use the mod that removes the whiteness?
Often you will see
I haven't gotten around to it yet. It doesn't. The whiteness doesn't really bother me all that
A
much.
standard assay that is not reflective
That's
of
why.
your testosterone dose you're using. Similarly, we see things like estrogen metabolites that are synthetic, artificially inflating your estradiol on ECLA as well. So, like, I've seen Oldenone.
there are certainly a group of
I like that they've separated these
seem
out.
to aggravate
That's
this
good.
problem, although it's not been clear to me which
Right.
ones.
aggravate, which
The artificial reading
Oh.
of enzyme-based testing of estradiol.
yeah, there's certain things. Biotech.
Yes, biotin.
School
like
road
just
building.
basic stuff.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, like in general, if you're not getting
Awesome.
liquid
With these new assets,
chromatography
we might make a
and
new
mass
game at
spectrometry is
some
like the
point.
highest sensitivity testing you can. Total testosterone and free testosterone. I haven't revisited in a while, but I recall equilibrium
I like
dialysis was like standard, and if you don't use those, you will end up with cross detection. I've seen on immunoassay total test and calculation for free
Fire
test
row house. I like
numbers
that.
showing that I'm in the reference range for testosterone when I did
Exist in
androlone
real life?
monotherapy. Like for you, if you stayed on that DECA, almost sure you're gutter, estradiol in the gutter, and you would have just had an androlone test. Should have just had like a hypogonadal looking testosterone profile,
Yes.
estradiol. But if you got the cheap, entry level assay testing, it probably would have been, well, look at that, my test range still, I'm not suppressed on androlone. I guess things of androlone isn't
Is it enough?
yeah. So that's like what some people might conclude. So it's very nuanced stuff, but often most people aren't going to have this stuff, so it's a bit relevant. But bodybuilding, especially, pretty important to know, especially where your estrogen is at. Thinking that you're good, you might have DHT derivative
That's
competing for
weird.
aromatase, and you're E2 on paper in range, and it's actually like crashed into single digits.
I don't know how I feel about that.
Cardiovascular disease.
Bone loss.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about Clomid and HCG. So I guess, maybe tell folks how they're used, and we can talk about some of the pluses and minuses of each.
So, human chorionic gonadotropin is present in pregnant women in significant quantities, and
All right.
is purified because
Okay.
it's used to stimulate the
It's looking pretty good so
hormone
far.
receptor,
I'm liking it.
similarly to what endogenous
Gonna
does.
keep on
So
trying.
it's similar. It's like it's a mimetic, essentially. I think mimics the effects of luteinizing hormone in the body. This is why it's commonly used in fertility regimens for men. You can essentially replicate the LH signal to your testes that may be suboptimal if you have low gonadotropin output, or non-existent if you have HPTA suppression, testosterone use, TRT, you can pretty reasonably expect that your LH and FSH will go down to either non-detectable or close to there, depending on what you're using and the dose. And replacing that LH, I would say, is of pretty high importance if maintaining fertility is important
Oh,
to
that's
you.
nifty.
So you will experience testicular
I like that.
atrophy if you do not replace the LH somehow, whether it's through a recombinant LH, ever used, HMG, which is either most cheapest, most barrier to entry, predictable thing is HCG. So that's what it is often used
Which
for.
still is not that cheap. If you're using
No,
the
it's-
branded
yeah.
HCG, is much more expensive.
Yeah,
than
there's like a
testosterone.
clamp down on it. World. And then Clomid, I guess the primary clinical use is in women for fertility. But in men, it acts, this is how it works in women. It's just like for fertility purposes, men,
Okay,
it's a
so
selective estrogen receptor modulator. So we talked about SARMs earlier, mentioned, SERMs, idea for SARMs. It interacts with the estrogen receptor in either a positive or negative way, in that it could stimulate activity, prevent estrogen from binding to it and interacting and providing estrogen in certain tissues, and it's selective. So Clomid has anti-estrogenic activity in the hypothalamus, so it kind of tricks your brain into thinking
I
it's
refuse to
estrogen-deprived.
build a central
The
bank.
response to that is we have low estrogen, so we need to make more testosterone.
I don't care how much easier it makes the game.
So you
I will
uptick
not build it.
your GnRH output to the pituitary, which will be an FSH, test, and sort of intervene with that to trick your body to make more tests, I guess is the best way to put it. And interestingly, I don't know if you want on the rabbit hole versus Clomid, but Clomid has two stereoisomers.
Yeah, one is basically a mirror image of it.
Yeah, so it's like zooclomiphene and clomiphene. And clomiphene is seemingly the more selective and actually hypothalamus, kind of like doing the thing you want. Clomid, zooclomiphene is like anti-gonadal, like it's providing almost like anti-androgenic type activity in a way that is not as selective. There's SERM, so we make SERM something that antagonizes estrogen receptors purely in the hypothalamus.
Oh, I like that too.
It's estrogen activity
That's,
everywhere else.
that's a good little thing.
Maintain, vascular, etc.
But honestly, they
Everything's
should make it
back
so that you can
accordingly,
just
except
keep on
for
doing it.
right there in your brain where you want to be tricked into thinking make more testosterone. So, and clomiphene, it also has a shorter half-life, significantly 10 hours. Do clomiphene days or something. So, the actual ability to maneuver the drug medically too, if you have a bad side effect or something, and get off it as easy Clomid because you have this big chunk of it do clomiphene. So, the idea and presumably creation of FDA approval and clomiphene was this is a more pure version of the drug that does what we want. There's been at least one study that showed improved outcomes in women who and clomiphene, but it never made it through FDA approval. Despite that, it doesn't prescribing it and people using it. I don't think it's a sustainable for entire life, probably. Reality, and it's not as easy to adhere to, but I would probably assert that stimulating exactly what you want to do directly, HCG plus recombinant FSH is a superior outcome rather than in perpetually inhibiting estrogen activity. Because there is going to be there's no drug really selected exactly where you want it is perfect.
Yeah, and that's the only issue I would also have with it, where I actually don't think, like, I think if you took two individuals, one of them you put on exogenous testosterone, one of them you put on clomiphene, and they were identical in every way in terms of readout, equal testosterone, free testosterone, and estradiol. I think there's still an argument to be made. The guy who's getting it from exogenous testosterone has a better outcome because he's not getting the central inhibition of estrogen. So his libido is better, his mood is better, his sleep is better.
Well, some of the mood dysregulation, wild.
Yeah, I mean, we never saw this stuff, but again, I think we're a very small sample size, right? We're not running like a clinic on this stuff. and we're using microdoses compared to where I think people are going. But nevertheless, you might not actually.
And these are
If you're not asking those questions, you also might not.
Yeah, and these are often, even when people report that, these are often people who are on the precipice of hypogonadism already with very low quality of life as is on the therapy, going on something and then noticing a decrease in vitality and notable anti-estrogenic activity. Like, you are going from a baseline that is not good to begin with. So it's like comparing that to the outcome of TRT, I feel like is often a misrepresentation just for the sake of maintaining adequate function, or you're maintaining the testicular axis. It's like, okay, does that at the end of the day, a thing that I need to maintain in perpetuity just for the sake of having an LH and FSH that comes from my pituitary instead of actively doing it? Probably not if it's permanently.
Oh, that's
antagonizing
good.
most of the
I don't know why that wasn't there to begin with.
Yeah, I think as a general rule, start to muck around receptors in the brain. You should have a should do it. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about fertility. So you let's compare a guy who's on testosterone versus a guy who's on HCG. So if you're on a high enough dose of HCG, you're going to see FSH and LH suppression.
Yeah, this is what I found. I dug into the specifically case that you mentioned.
So what does it mean? So you got two guys. One guy's on testosterone, one guy's on HCG, and they both have a very high testosterone. They both have completely suppressed LH and FSH. Obviously, in the case of the guy on high testosterone, his Leydig cells are doing nothing. The guy on the high HCG, his Leydig cells are cranking out testosterone. But in both cases, there's enough testosterone being made that the pituitary has stopped making LH and FSH.
Yeah.
So what happens to these guys when you stop testosterone? Let's assume they've both been on several years.
80 billion.
The guy who has sustained organ function is certainly going to have a smoother transition because he has maintained the natural function and output of the entire time. This is the other guy has literally deprived the tissue so significantly that it's a fraction of the size. So trying to compare a guy recovering with testes half the size or less compared to a guy who has functioning testes that have been maintained, that guy just needs to discontinue and get rid of that feedback inhibition. He's likely going to natural function in order pending his gonadotropin pituitary is satisfactory. So it's to be determined if that guy is going to have a pituitary output given other factors, lifestyle, etc. But probably that guy is going to be, I would say. The question then is, why did that guy go on HCG to begin with? LH output. So maybe if that guy got on with low LH output on HCG, because probably would have, he's probably going to go back to low LH output unless something dramatic has changed in his baseline, lifestyle.
I like that a lot.
And he's older now with less testicular function.
I don't know why that wouldn't have an expansion.
For sure, that is a major factor. But he at least has more potential to recover to whatever his baseline was. The other guy, in my opinion, is going to have a longer, more this road with, okay, you have to have enough to not only get the test from into your system of having negative feedback, now you have to get the pituitary output back, lead to some satisfactory amount, which if your baseline was low, on TRT, why else would you, unless you had like failure, that guy would have never got off test because that's the only option he has essentially. That guy is going to have enough LH output to stimulate him back to baseline testicle size to match the capacity of the other guy just from a logic standpoint. So I would assert that the HCG guy is almost certainly going to be better off than this guy.
And do you think that there's a way around it, the HCG guy, if you dose him more frequently? Like you take the same dose. We typically dose HCG twice a week. So kind of starter dose would be like 750 units twice a week, or 625. It's the math easier. I think 625 twice a week allows him to go whatever 8 weeks with a vial or something like something like that. And then generally we just stop if you're not getting an amazing response at 2,000 twice a week. You would never. I mean, we would never go above. You're wasting your time, wasting money. I'm curious, by the way, what doses are bodybuilders using?
Typically, it's 2 using it, but the ones that are typically using it are following literature recommended dosages, at least from what I've seen, to maintain intratesticular testosterone at 100% while suppressed on exogenous androgens.
Well, that's
I
not.
think the dose is about 375.
It's just a box.
Okay, so not per
No,
million
yeah.
doses at all.
But this is also assuming you're starting at function, you're not trying to get back up from 0 to 100. So, that'll be a bit of a. But, yeah, there is
Oh, I did
that
that.
guy who is on HCG will, I would assert probably have an easier transition for sure.
That shouldn't be
But we can definitely
happening.
get into the FSH suppression and the frequency of administration. That's what you.
Why are there trash
more frequently,
issues?
versus twice a week? The half-life of HCG, I believe, is for 36 hours off the top of my head. Check, but if you are going to an everyday schedule, you're probably going to maintain more stable serum concentration, so you're not going to get as aggressive spikes in Leydig cell activation. So you're going to have probably more representative natural health test, but at the same time, if that level of test is satisfactory to
I don't even know.
achieve one levels body needs from an androgen and
You should
estrogen,
shut down.
yeah, then you should shut down. So the only way you wouldn't is either A, HCG was too low, B, your response to the HCG was too low, or C, your C was so ideal that you had little blips of
Gaps.
time that you had deprivation, essentially. How do you reacted to it? It's not an ideal outcome either. So, yeah, that's the frequency thing. I think it's more so, I would recommend more probably for just stability and side effect profile, but
All right, guys. I think that's it for today.
A couple more
Got stuff
random
to do.
things before we wrap up. We've been going
But
a while.
I will
and,
be back tomorrow,
I feel
same
like I'm about
time.
halfway through the stuff I wanted to talk about, but
Real has been
I think
fun.
there's
It's been
one
real
peptide
fun.
we didn't talk about, which is
Big one.
BPC 156.